Assalamu alaikum, fam. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our reading of Suetonius' Lives of the Caesars, and it's highly educational because you get to peek into how some viewed the rulership of the time of those figures of Rome, and it really gives you a lot of information to nerd out on. Now, we're still in Gaius Julius Caesar's section. Let's begin. We are in paragraph XL. When turning his attention to the reorganization of the state, he reformed the calendar, with the negligence of the pontiffs had long since so disordered. Okay, that's interesting. So pontiffs used to have control over the calendar? Through their privilege of adding months or days at pleasure. Are you serious? Look at that. So they could just do whatever they want with the measurement of time. That the harvest festivals did not come in summer, nor those the vintage in the autumn, and he adjusted the year to the sun's course by making it consist of 365 days. Aha! So, Gaius Julius Caesar having a role in the calendar, abolishing the intercalary month, and adding 1 day every 4th year. Furthermore, that the correct reckoning of time might begin with the next calends of January. He inserted 2 other months between those of November and December, hence the year in which these arrangements were made was one of 15 months. 15 months! Including the intercalary month, which belonged to that year according to the former custom. Now that's trippy, because many have spoken about how a calendar really, in your localized area around the seasons, really shapes your perception of time. So for me, it's just interesting how people organized all of that. I still have to learn more about the Islamic calendar and get used to the way in which the dates are said and stuff, but it's been proven to be quite difficult. He filled the vacancies in the Senate, enrolled additional patricians, and increased the number of praetors, aedils, and quaestors, as well as minor officials. So he's just really packing it. See, this was something that I know Cato and that ilk didn't agree with. They didn't want people of the newly acquired territories, who were still considered barbarians and not really civic Romans, to have a sway in what happened in affairs of the state. He reinstated those who had been degraded by official action of the censors, or found guilty of bribery by verdict of the jurors. Well, he shouldn't have done that. I mean, you don't want to put corrupt people back in their position. He shared the elections with the people on this basis, that except in the case of the consulship, half of the magistrates should be appointed by the people's choice. So, magistrates by the people's choice. Wow. So, adding in a little bit of democracy there. Let's put an annotation there. While the rest should be those whom he had personally nominated, and these he announced in brief notes like the following. Okay, brief notes. He circulated in each tribe, Caesar the dictator to this or that tribe. So what's cool is that you have different tribes even then. I commend you to so-and-so to hold their position by your votes. He admitted to office even the sons of those who had been proscribed. He limited the right of serving as jurors to 2 classes. Okay, so must have been more than previously, if that juror thing gets reduced to just 2. The equestrian and senatorial orders. Okay, so the people who can serve on the jury are equestrians or senatorial classes, disqualifying the 3rd class, the tribunes of the treasury. Ooh, so if you had a position in the treasury, you couldn't be on the jury. I wonder why that is. He made the enumeration of the people, neither in the usual manner nor place, but from the street aided by owners of blocks of houses. What is this? Hold on. He made the enumeration of the people neither in the usual manner nor place. So he spoke on the street and reduced the number of those who received grain at public expense from 320,000 to 150,000. Wow, so public grain, so it's almost like their form of welfare then. But remember, he also gave different banquets and stuff at his triumphs and, maybe with all the land that the soldiers were given, it wasn't exactly necessary anymore. As much, that is. And to prevent the calling of additional meetings at any future time for purposes of enrollment, he provided that the places of such as died should be filled each year by praetors from those who were not on the list. Okay, so praetors. Wow. It's either the dictator, this or that tribe. Well, interesting. So he is making quite a bit of changes. Really, he's adding more aediles, quaestors, praetors. He's really bulking up the government, cutting certain food programs, and then regulating who can be on the jury, and then speaking on the street. So not just sticking to where one would usually think someone of that status would speak. Moreover, to keep the population of the city depleted as it was by the assignment of 80,000 citizens to colonies across the sea. Wait, what? Keep the population of city depleted. Keep the city population depleted. Now, when cities become too congested, they allow homeless encampments. It makes it desperately unsafe. So if you don't allow people to be vagrants on the streets, you clear them out, and you have, a regulatory process on who can live in the capitals and who can live in these super cities, might add to more order and less crime. Interesting. He made a law that no citizen older than 20 or younger than 40 who was not detained by service in the army should be absent from Italy for more than 3 successive years. Okay, hold up. He made a law that no citizen older than 20 or younger than 40 who wasn't in the army should be absent from Italy. So he should be absent. So basically, that's weird. That's really strange. And that those who made a business of grazing should have among their herdsmen at least 1/3 who were men of free birth. Oh, wow. So to really reduce slave labor, look at that. He conferred citizenship on all who practiced medicine at Rome. Look at that. So if you practice medicine, you got to be a citizen of Rome. That's smart, because it's like, hey, you want to be a citizen? We'll invite all the medical people in. That's pretty cool. Keep your population healthy. Incentivize the nerdy herbsies to come. Pretty good. And on all teachers of liberal arts, to them more desirous of living in the city, to induce others to resort to it. Now, what they mean by liberal arts isn't what they mean today. The liberal arts of ancient Rome is right-wing conservatism now in America. How words change over time, man. They'd be like, hey, is that, hey, you feel like, because now they demonize you if you actually like ancient Rome. You could actually get in trouble for sharing images of Roman soldiers. So that's quite funny. Oh my goodness, how the liberals today are totally insane. As to debts, he disappointed those who looked for their cancellation. Well, I mean, how many people always do that? Like, we got ourselves into debt. Cancel our debt. It's like today with the student loan. I'm sorry. I ate some spicy chili pepper. It's like today in how they want their student loan debt forgiven. You took the loan. You decided to go work at Starbucks. You let somebody push you into credentialism, and now you're deeply in the hole You shamed others for not going to college. And now you want those people who didn't go to college to put into the tax pool so that you can be bailed out. It's quite amazing. It's quite amazing, quite strange. They looked disappointed, but finally decreed that the debtors should satisfy their creditors according to a valuation of their possessions. So, they're going to assess their property at the price which they had paid for them before the Civil War, deducting from the principal whatever interest had been paid in cash or pledged through bankers. Look at that. Interest even in ancient Rome. That's crazy. An arrangement which wiped out about a fourth part of their indebtedness. Well, that's pretty good. 1/4. He dissolved all guilds. Why? Except those of ancient foundation. Oh. Why? Blacksmith guilds. The mercantile guilds. In the 16th century, the guilds had a lot of power. The mercantile class. I mean, it was really cool to read about. 16th, 17th century. The guilds, they had a big sway in politics. Now, small businesses and artistic things like that, artisans and historical ranchers, are demonized and were really abused during the lockdowns. Totally crushed them. In favor of monopolistic transnational global corporations that have low-quality, cheap Chinese-made products. Pretty ironic that this whole plague started from China, and then China still made money because they sold us all the crap we needed while we crushed our local economies. Wow. So he dissolved many guilds. That's interesting. He increased the penalties for crimes. Beautiful. Look at that. And inasmuch as the rich involved themselves in guilt with less hesitation, because they merely suffered exile, without any loss of property, he punished the murderers of freemen by the confiscation of all their goods. Look at that. So, if you're wealthy, you're going to be in exile, but you're not going to lose your property. That's pretty interesting. It'd be cool if we could exile the criminal rich people from our countries. Poor countries that have to receive them, but, be like, get out. Right? That's pretty cool. And a murderer, now there's slaves here in Rome. Interesting. There's slaves in ancient Rome that were white, owned by white people. And if you point that out in the slavery conversation, it's like nobody asks Italians to apologize for slavery. And no one's gonna stop eating pizza and pasta, visiting Rome. It's just, I don't know. It's like it's so funny how slavery's only put, in a certain framework. And here you hear it right here, is that if you're a slave who murdered a freeman, all your property is going to be taken, which how much do you have at the end of the day? But it's just interesting how people forget that Rome had slaves. As Cicero writes, and others by the loss of 1/2. So some lost 1/2, others lost to them all. Well, I mean, dang, that's pretty cool. Fixing some debt, 1/4. Helping there to get, an expansion in the medical field and education field. Gave land as well, to the soldiers. Reduced some guilds, I wonder which ones. Remember, he only allowed the equestrian and the senatorial class to be part of the jurors and told the tribunes of the treasury, nah, you ain't in it. Well, wow. This is pretty amazing. And then he adjusted the year to the sun's course by making it consist of 365 days. And he stopped letting the pontiffs to add months or days however they wanted. Wow. And he filled the vacancies of the Senate and kind of expanded the bureaucracy extensively, it seems. And that people had to have, like if you were in agriculture, had some type of herding business, you had to have at least 1/3 who were free people. So they wanted jobs to be for the citizens and not all the jobs to go to the slaves. This is interesting because I remember hearing about how the nobles couldn't find, good jobs for their youth because of the fact that slaves who were flooding in took all the jobs. So when he puts here that, they're like, hey, you have to hire some locals. You can't, local free men. You cannot just import slaves. This is interesting because today people argue about that as well on many different fronts. And that's an even cooler conversation because then you get into economic migration and how the nation class, the domestic class, not reproducing, not having children, not really wanting to work as hard due to being soft, and the greed of the corporations not wanting to pay them more. So both of those parts are at odds. And then having a border wide open with no real security and just having all the migrants pour in. There's unlimited labor, so that makes the wages incomparable. So now it's about, today's age is about wages. When it appears back here, it was about freedom versus, like you're a free citizen versus being a slave. How similar problems transferred through time is quite interesting, I have to say. That's why I like reading these books, because you get to see how, what is going on back then, Mind you, it's not, letter to the letter, but it's still a glimpse of what's going on, thousands of years ago, right? It's pretty cool because you see how people are struggling with the same issues. It's just the pendulum swings, right? It goes back and forth. Hope you learned something.